Hi everyone. I think I'm getting used to coming in here and recording videos. It's really not that bad. It's a big spacious. It's spacious in here. So this might be my new home. Well, anyway, it's actually raining today, and so my husband is kind of parked inside. So I really didn't know if I was going to do a video today anyway. But I decided I'm going to be pretty busy tomorrow, and wasn't sure if I would have time to do one tomorrow. And on weekends, I usually don't do a video on weekends unless something really exciting happens and I want to tell you about it. And not too much excitement has happened here lately, so I thought I would just pop in and do a short video today in case it's going to be a few days before I actually get to do one. So today, I was, something really kind of unusual happened today, and I thought I would just kind of tell you about it, how sometimes, unusual things happen. Today is actually the third anniversary of my father-in-law's passing away, and, he was a really special man, and my voicemail has been on my home phone has been messed up for weeks now, more than 3 weeks. Our internet went out and our phone went out over 3 weeks ago for about 5 days or so. And we had to have a technician come out, and he got our internet up and running and made sure our phone was working before he left. He had to put a new modem box or something in. And so he tested the phone and it was working, but I didn't think anything about the voicemail part until after he had left. And I thought, well, I would just check it and see if we had any voicemails, in that 5 days. And I couldn't get into my voicemails. And it said something about the mailbox couldn't be accessed or something. And so I called the internet company later that day, or maybe it was the next day, I can't remember, and told them that, we had a technician that come out and he'd changed our modem out, but something in that 5 days, I guess, or maybe the changing of the modem, we couldn't access our voicemails now. And you know how it is with these internet companies. You can't get anything done, it seemed like. And so they said they would put a ticket in and see if they could help us with our voicemail. And so, that has been like 3 weeks ago. And so to make a long story short, I have been on the phone with the internet company about 3 times in this 3-week period and could not get my voicemail situation, worked out or anything. And I was on the phone again yesterday with a technician or a representative, and she said, well, let me try calling your home phone and see. And so she called. I was on like a cell phone, so she could call, my home phone. And so she said, no. She said, I can't get into your voicemail. And I said, no. I said, because it's not working. And she said, let me see if I can activate it. So she said, okay, I've got it activated. And she said, it may take up to 24 hours for it to work. She said, just check on it every so often and see if you can get in there. So I'd done that all day long yesterday and still couldn't access it. So this morning I got on the phone with them again. I think this was the 3rd or 4th representative I've talked to, and got a hold of a nice young man. And he was very talkative. He wanted to know all about where I was from, what I liked about it, what seasons I liked about it, and which I'm glad I got a hold of a really nice person, but I wanted to get my voicemail fixed. And after being on the phone with him for a while, being on hold ever so often, he finally, he called, and whatever he did, he got my voicemail to work. And I don't know what he did that nobody else could do. And so he told me, he said, okay, so now call your voicemail. He said, because I left you a voicemail, and see if you can access your voicemail. Well, I got his voicemail, and I said, okay, I think it's working now. And I thanked him and everything. So after I hung up with him, I called my voicemail again so I could erase his voicemail. And it said I had 7 saved voicemails. And I didn't know what they were or anything. So I started listening to those voicemails. Most of them were just junk. It was like doctor's office calls and left messages. I mean, these were back, and I had no idea those were even on there. These were back from like 2020 and 21. And I started erasing, at the end it tells you, you can erase them. So I started erasing all these voicemails one by one. And I got to the last saved voice message. And when this recording came on, my heart just sank or whatever. It was my father-in-law. It was my husband's dad. And it was a message to him. And he was telling him, he was just calling to check on him and me. And it was just like a 13-second voicemail. And that's the way my father-in-law is. He didn't like to use his phone. And if he did, it was a very short message. He got on there and said what he had to say. And that was it. And it was just a sweet message telling him he called to check on him and me. And then he said, I love you at the very end. And I was so touched. And I just thought it was so strange. I never did know that those voice messages were on there. And they were saved. And that was the last voice message I come to. And today is actually the third year of the passing away of him. And when I hung up the phone, and I went to tell my husband, I said, we finally got the voicemail working today. And I said, it's so strange that today is your dad's third passing. And I said that I erased all the voice messages. And I said, that last voice message, I said, really got to me. And I said, you'll never believe who it was from. And he thought maybe it was from his mom because she passed away about a little over a year before his dad did. And I had several messages that I had saved from her answer machine. And I said, no, it wasn't from your mom. And he said, who? I said, it was from your dad. He said, Dad? And because, he felt that was strange because, his dad rarely left messages. And I said, yeah, it was from your dad. And I let him listen to that message from his dad. And, it really touched him. And he said, that was so strange. He said, because Dad never left messages hardly. So I just thought that was so strange, that I would actually have that voicemail and it was saved on there and that he could actually listen to it today, And I just want to share that with y'all, how sometimes the strangest things will happen, but at the right time. And it's just strange how God, works things out. And like I said, he always works things out right on time for us. So I just wanted to share that with you all. So some other things. I think my video cut off on me, so I had to restart it. So some other things that I've been doing today. I was working in my pantry and I saw a jar of honey. It was homemade honey. It was my husband's uncle actually, would make honey and put it up. And that jar of honey just, I don't know, it just got me in a good mood. That song come to me when I got that jar of honey, and it was an old song that we sang in church years ago. It was, there's honey in the rock for me. There's honey in the rock for me. There's honey in the rock just beyond the mountaintop. There's honey in the rock for me. Now, as I've said, I can't sing worth a hoot, but that doesn't stop me from singing around the house and humming around the house. But have y'all ever heard that old song, Honey in the Rock? That's an old one that we always sung in church growing up. And, some of the old people, they would get up there and sing. I grew up in the Pentecostal churches and everything, and I am Pentecostal. And, in the churches that I always went to and stuff, we didn't have all that fancy music and that fancy singing. We sung from the hymn books and sung the old time songs. And, a lot of the churches, they may have had an old piano, and, the men, they would have their guitars, and somebody sometimes would have a banjo, or as the older people would say, banger, they'd say, somebody come up with your banjo. But that's the churches I grew up in. I think about them a lot of times because, a lot of the older churches, they just don't exist anymore. We have the churches with the big fancy musics and the drums, and they have the TV screens anymore and stuff. And, I'm not knocking that or anything, but, when you just grow up old fashioned like I do, you still miss that. You still find those churches that they do exist, but they're just not as much anymore. And, the churches, like I said, we had the old wooden benches and the wooden floors. And, sometimes those benches, they had those nails that would stick up. And, a lot of us ladies had our pantyhose and stuff. Sometimes we'd get snags and everything. I just love reminiscing about those old days and stuff. So, yeah, I've just been in a reflective mood today. Probably because it's raining outside and I've not been outside today, and I've just been working in the house. And when I do that, I get reflective and start thinking about the old days and things like that. So, yeah. And so I was cleaning in my refrigerator today, too. And, some of your refrigerator bins, mine was getting a little out of hand. And I found a head of cabbage that need to be cooked and some broccoli. I didn't want those to go bad, so they look like, I needed to use them. So I've got them on the stove now. My broccoli, I'm going to steam it and probably melt me some cheese on it today. Or I might make me a baked potato and put broccoli and cheese on it. I love that. And my husband, he loves cabbage. Anyway, you can fix it. I fixed him some cooked cabbage last week, so this week I might fry him up some cabbage with onions. But I've got both of those on the stove, and he came in just a little while ago, and he said, "Shoo," he said, "you've got this house that's stinking." I said, "Well, it may stink, but this stuff's going to taste good after a while." So, yeah, it is smelling a little ripe in my kitchen right now, but that it tastes so good. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing today. It's just, I call it piddling around the house. But when I do that, I just start thinking and reminiscing about the old days and things. Oh, yeah. But I'm going to cut this video short and go back to the kitchen and cook some more. And I just want to just do a short video today and check in and see how everybody's doing. Like I said, it's raining here, but it's cooled things off a little bit. But when it stops raining after a while, the sun's probably going to come out. It's going to get hot and humid again. Yeah, I think it's hot everywhere. But just want to say, I hope you're having a blessed day, no matter what your weather is. God's still the same. He controls the weather. So we're blessed no matter what. So, like I always say, God loves you, and so do I. So, have a good day.